Obligatory warning. This countdown features content that may be disturbing or upsetting to some viewers. While I will include warnings and timestamps to skip past especially triggering PSAs and go straight to my commentary, all PSAs in this countdown will be presented exactly as they aired, completely uncensored, so it goes without saying that this compilation should not be watched by anyone under 16. Now, I've been a member of the PSA community for a while, and well, there's a scale of scariness in PSAs. Each country has its specialty. America has the scariest PSAs relating to guns and drugs. Canada has the scariest work safety PSAs. Australia and New Zealand are tied for the scariest road safety PSAs. The Netherlands has the scariest firework PSAs. And Britain has the scariest fire safety PSAs. And so forth. Where the fuck am I going with this? Well, there's one region that has ostensibly the scariest PSAs I have ever seen. That being the continent of Asia. You thought Aussie and Kiwi PSAs were graphic? Well, you haven't seen anything. Today, we're going to be looking at the top 25 scariest Asian PSAs. As bad as the CGI in this PSA is, it's honestly one of the saddest things I've ever seen. I cannot stand people who purposely harm animals. This dog just wanted to do right by his owner, get her a new zebra toy, make her happy, and he died for no other reason than because the owner of a restaurant was spiteful. Horrific. Fucking horrific. Otherwise, not really much to say. The only reason this PSA was ranked so low is because the awful CGI and the overdramatic soundtrack make it very hard for me to get immersed in this.
黙れよキモい。
あいつマジ無理。そろそろうざい。
うるせえよ。キモい。消えない。鬱陶しい。消えない。早く死ね。消えない。絶対許さない。消えない。
This PSA is one of the most unsettling anti-bullying PSAs I have ever seen, and I quite enjoy the metaphor of an offensive post on the internet being just as permanent as a tattoo. It's very creative, though to be fair, pretty much all AC Japan PSAs are. This PSA is one of the most simple PSAs I have ever seen. However, I feel that its minimalism benefits it. It's unsettling from the beginning, and even more so after the reveal that this is unfortunately the fate of many children that actually have had nonces lay their grubby hands on them. This PSA is very to the point, and I love it for that. That crunch and the rotten insides of the orange, meant to represent breast cancer on the right, made me physically cringe, but it definitely makes the message hard to forget.
Doctor, please dial 182. Dr. Forrest, please dial 111.
One of the best bait and switch PSAs. It starts out making the viewer think this is an AIDS PSA, however, it is revealed that this is not the case. While AIDS didn't get our guy here, unfortunately, speeding and to an extent his cockiness was this man's demise, which brings us to this PSA's point that we should fear speeding just as much as at the time we were afraid of AIDS. This PSA is just sad. I'm aware that as an internet user and American, because of my country's love for cheap labor, a lot of the products I own are probably manufactured by third world kids or even in second world sweatshops by people my age. Still sad to consider that this kid thought someone would come to help him, but the man who ended up finding his note either didn't know what this letter reading help meant, or who wrote it, or he just didn't care.
A ray of hope flickers in the sky. A tiny star lights up way up high. All across the land, this comes to pass when the a silent breeze stirs the seven seas. The winds of change.
This is arguably the most metal anti-drug PSA to ever air. Like, this wouldn't be out of place in a Nine Inch Nails music video, a young woman using snake venom as some sort of drug. It works as a metaphor, though. Drugs are essentially a type of venom, especially intravenous street drugs.
Every day, 2 million tons of sewage and industrial effluent float into Hong Kong water. We better clean up our act, or the consequences will be hard to swallow.
PSA is one of the more stomach-turning environmental PSAs. It starts off with a fancy family at a restaurant, but then we are treated to a black sludge fest that makes this look like an emo version of a Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. Except this sludge is the industrial waste and sewage poured into Hong Kong waters. Also, the announcer is perfectly unnerving for this PSA. He sounds right out of a CSI promo.
"近頃チャイルドマザーが増えています。近頃チャイルドファザーが増えています。
I swear, the more I look into these ads, the more unsettling they become. The implication that these young parents were too immature to be responsible, well, parents, are not lost on me. Aside from the shots of both the mothers and fathers sucking on pacifiers, which is arguably the most unnerving part of these PSAs, the eerie silence alongside the messed up kitchen and toy-strewn rooms only adds to the creepiness of these PSAs.
담배를 끊는 건 힘들어요. 그래서 전 끊지 못했죠. 하지만 확실한 건 지금이 훨씬 더 힘들다는 겁니다.
담배. 끊는 것은 힘들지만 끊지 않으면 더 힘들어집니다.
I remember seeing this on Hello I'm a Pizza's channel, and well, it's stuck with me ever since. It doesn't sugarcoat anything. Quitting smoking is hard, but obviously, after having a stroke, nothing is easy anymore. And this poor man, his stroke made him a shell of his former self. He's in constant agony. Another really depressing touch to this PSA is that if you look closely, what I think is his girlfriend is crying at what he's become. It's incredibly hard to watch and is one of the most effective PSAs I've ever seen. Not that I would ever be tempted to smoke to begin with.
What are you doing? What's going on? شو عم تعملي؟ تعالي لهون مهيمة! مهيمة خلص بقى! شو عم تعملي؟ زلت! زلت! تعالي لهون شو عم تعملي؟ جنيتي؟ I will show Mister. I will show Mister what you are doing. Come here. مهيمة! رح فرجي الكل شو عم تعملي. بليز تفرجوا بشرفكم. مهيمة جنت. مهيمة رح تنط. مهيمة خلص طبت بقى. مهيمة!
These PSAs are nothing short of shocking, but they really do embody the gotta capture everything mentality of the 21st century. Now, I'm not about to go all boomer and say phone bad, but I am horrified that in most instances, one's first instinct upon seeing one's pain is to record and post it to the internet rather than to make an attempt to help the person suffering. For example, in the last PSA, the bystander literally films a woman burning to death rather than making an attempt to help her. It's not really the scenarios themselves that make these PSAs disturbing, but rather the sheer apathy shown by the people recording said incidents. The creepy music really adds to this PSA. Don't get me wrong, the Sand family collapsing and the ominous text makes it unnerving too, but it's the surreal music with those ominous bells that really give this PSA its sense of urgency, which is fitting given that the PSA states if global warming continues, 80% of the sandy beaches will be eroded, and the people who live near these will also be harmed.
Hundreds of women in Pakistan fall victim to acid violence. Now the government has passed a law making acid-related crimes punishable by life imprisonment and a fine of 1 million rupees. Join us as we spread the word and help those affected.
मैंने कुछ थोड़ी किया है, अपने ऊपर खुद ही फेंका हुआ। आवारा थी, ज़हनी मरीज थी, गुस्सा बहुत आता था उसे। मैंने कुछ नहीं किया।
Hundreds of women in Pakistan fall victim to acid violence. Now the government has passed a law making acid-related crimes punishable by life imprisonment and a fine of 1 million rupees. Join us as we spread the word and help those affected.
Unfortunately, acid attacks are very common in Islamic nations. They are seen as honor crimes. Though to be fair, there is nothing fucking honorable about these vile attacks. All they do is destroy faces and lives. The first PSA shows a woman destroying every reflective surface due to the sight of her face being a reminder of what her attacker took from her. And the second shows her attacker in jail gloating about his actions, showing no remorse. Like I said, there is nothing fucking honorable about these crimes.
คุณยายคะเดี๋ยวพรุ่งนี้อุ่มจะไปโรงเรียนแล้วอะค่ะงั้นเดี๋ยวอุ่มไปซื้อสมุดกันนะคะแล้วเดี๋ยวจะตามไปค่ะข้ามถนนระวังรถนะลูก
มีน้ำใจให้คนเดินเท้าบ้างเถอะครับ
This PSA, let's not even sugarcoat it, is incredibly brutal. An old woman is flung into the air after being struck by a reckless driver, and yet this PSA seems to make it out to be her fault, telling the viewer to watch out for reckless drivers, since this incident could happen to you if you aren't careful. It doesn't pull any punches, and while it could be considered comedic, it is still horrifying given that both the viewer and the people in the PSA just watched an old woman be run over.
家族を人生を奪い去った北朝鮮による拉致。自由を奪われた拉致被害者たちが今も救出を待ち続けています。すべての拉致被害者を日本は必ず取り戻す。
This PSA is incredibly sad and disturbing. For context, from 1977 to 1983, North Korean spies had kidnapped several Japanese citizens, ostensibly to teach the language in North Korean schools. This PSA was created in the hopes that the remaining abductees would be returned back to Japan. Only 5 of the 17 people that the Japanese government has recognized as North Korean abductees have been returned so far, sadly, as of 2023. The last returns happened back in 2004. As I've stated before in previous countdowns, a PSA doesn't have to be good to be scary. It's an absolutely horrible message to be pushing in a PSA, don't get me wrong, but the visuals and sound effects are very creepy, and the implications that this PSA is saying, if you're gonna kill yourself, there's cheaper ways to do so, like please, you should kill yourself now, make it all the more creepy. Like I said, awful message for a PSA. You absolutely shouldn't even entertain the idea of suicide in a PSA. This is arguably the scariest PSA in the Heroin is a Living Hell campaign because of its grimy environment, jarring sounds, and visceral depictions of the pain heroin withdrawal can cause. Yes, PSAs like Rats and Sweat are more visually creepy, but this one makes me shudder at the incredibly graphic, visceral depictions of the sheer torrent of pain unleashed on one's ass from non-stop explosive diarrhea after stopping heroin usage.
No one knows how much brain damage the designer drug Ecstasy causes. It's still being tested. Take Ecstasy, and you're the guinea pig.
It's a classic. The look in the test subject's face haunts me to this day. His convulsions do too. This PSA is haunting, and I can see why it's a favorite of many PSA reviewers. It's an incredible PSA, Everything from the patient who's in a constant ecstasy-induced delirium, the creepy environment, the muted color scheme, and of course, the soundtrack that plays throughout this PSA is also pretty good too. It's a version of a song called You Always Hurt the One You Love by the Mills Brothers. There's a whole campaign of these, and while I have heard that they were made by the US government for Iraq, I think regardless of the intentions, it has a good message. These PSAs, according to the now defunct site, use Quranic verses in their true Islamic meaning, free of the distortion committed by the misguided malicious terrorists. This specific PSA quotes the verse, "Sedition is worse than murder." Granted, this PSA has its problematic aspects, however, it is a good message that is being pushed, that ultimately, terror's only power is terror itself.
最近、覚醒剤は家庭の主婦や青少年、サラリーマンを蝕んでいます。興味半分の一本の覚醒剤。それがあなた自身を廃人にしてしまうばかりか、あなたの家庭をも破壊します。
Arguably the saddest anti-drug PSA I have ever seen. I feel so bad for the kid, and watching them cry is just awful. I think for an 80s drug PSA, this is an appeal I have almost never seen. That emotional appeal being, if you do these dangerous drugs, you won't just destroy yourself, you'll also destroy those around you. In this case, those around you meaning your family.
أنا كأغلق مقعد النسيئة 5 دقات אבא, חגורה מאחור לוחצת, אני לא שם אותה. אמא, כבר מגיעים, למה לחגור מאחור?
לא זזים, לפני שכולם חגורים.
I've seen a few PSAs with this childish excuses for not wearing seatbelts premise, but none are as brutal as this one. Also very unusual for surgery to be shown in a road safety PSA, let alone on someone so young. This just might be the most brutally honest road safety PSA I have ever seen. Kudos to the Israeli government for not pulling any punches on this one. This PSA relies entirely on implications, and that's all it needs to work. Relax, guys, it's not actual dog meat. It looks more like ground chicken, and we don't actually see any dogs. It's only implied. But through sound association with the dog yelps, the PSA tricks your mind into thinking you are watching a dog be ground up alive. It is an interesting use of mind tricks, and good God, is it bone chilling.
Suri ram ram ram, suri ram ram ram. Suri ram yang darat. Aduhai manis wajahmu sayang, geramnya kau buatku rasa. Tinggilah tinggi pulau Purnama, pintu dah kunci, oh rapat-rapat. Sudah lama aku mengidam sayang, malam ini aku mendapat
We'll talk to you about this tomorrow, okay? All right, thank you. See you. Bye. Ah, Mei. So, what is this you're drawing? Let's take a look. Okay. Wow, that's beautiful. That's great. Hey, you want to have some fun? Yes? Okay, I'll teach you a song, alright? Goes like this. My itsy bitsy fingers are tickling your knees. Let's play a game. It's just you and me. Just close your eyes and don't make a sound. Let my itsy bitsy fingers touch you all around.
锁匙嘞？你看，你有看到我锁匙吗？
没有。
唉，怎么你头发那么湿啊？来，叔叔帮你抹抹。
哦。
1、2、3、4、5、6、7，我的宝贝在哪里？来这里，来这里，让我抱抱吻吻你。1、2、3、4、5、6、7， 让我慢慢摸摸你，一点痛没关系，这是我们的秘密。1、2、3、4、5、6、7。
These PSAs are the definition of squick. They never fail to creep me the fuck out. In fact, I think I talked about these in my top 20 scariest child abuse PSAs countdown, and they were in this exact same spot. What grosses me out about them so much is that they are incredibly visceral in their depiction of how nonces groom children under the guise of love. I feel like I've been touched inappropriately each time I watch this series of PSAs.
Said the little lamb to the shepherd boy, do you see what I see? Do you see what I see? A child, sleeping in the night, he will bring us goodness and light. He will bring us goodness and light.
I'm not saying this PSA is good by any means, because while my stance on abortion is irrelevant to the commentary, I never agree with using religion as an excuse to guilt trip and influence someone else's choices with their body. Granted, Roman Catholicism has a strong influence on the culture of the Philippines, and while abortion does go against conservative Christian and Asian in general values of providing children and families for God, however, I feel like this PSA embodies every Christian anti-abortion argument I've ever heard. Graphic depiction of an aborted fetus? Check. Shoehorning a Bible verse into the argument? Check. Religious guilt tripping? Check. But I'd be lying if I said this PSA wasn't horrifying due to its sheer graphicness. And it just fucking comes out of nowhere. Just one punch after the other. Really was no other choice for the scariest Asian PSA. This PSA is one of the most horrifying things I have ever seen, and it's probably the third scariest PSA of all time in my book. The silence, aside from the dog whimpering and the gas chamber sounds, and the fact that this is real footage, makes it all the more horrifying. And let's also not forget the statistic of 450,000 dogs and cats a year put to death in a gas chamber. It's an absolutely effective PSA, and I can see why it has the notoriety it does. Well, gentlemen, ladies, and fellow non-binary daisies, I know it's been a while since my last PSA countdown, but it's good as fuck to be back. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and if you've done all those things, join my Discord server. The fan art contest is in its last week. There are 6 days left to submit something as of the recording of this outro. So, if you want a chance for your art to be shown at the end of my videos in the fan art wall, join my server. Link is in the video and description. If you've done all those things, y'all have a great day. Antonio out. Peace.